It is 9:02 a.m. The camera is on. 12 faces watch you from a grid of rectangles. Your manager is in that grid. 2 product owners, a business stakeholder who was never supposed to be in this meeting at all. And now it is your turn. You were going to say 3 sentences, but the silence feels enormous. So you start explaining, then justifying, then promising. I think I can probably push that ticket to done by end of day if I work through lunch. You did not mean to say that. But the pressure in that room, that silent watching pressure, pulled it out of you like a confession. This is the daily stand-up. And for millions of developers and engineers, it has become the most quietly dangerous 15 minutes of the entire workday.
The daily scrum was engineered to be a peer-to-peer sync, a fast, focused inspection of progress toward a single sprint goal. 15 minutes, no agendas, no managers interrogating timelines. But somewhere between the whiteboard and the distributed video call, it mutated. What you are sitting inside now is what organizational psychologists call the fishbowl effect. You are the fish. The stakeholders are pressed against the glass, watching. And under that intensity of surveillance, your nervous system does exactly what nervous systems evolved to do. It people pleases to survive. You inflate your capacity. You volunteer for work you do not have bandwidth for. You perform busyness rather than reporting actual progress. The compounding result is entirely predictable. Sprint end arrives. The team has failed to deliver its inflated promises again. The deadline becomes an arbitrary marker. The retrospective becomes a ritual of manufactured optimism. And the burnout accumulates in the background, quietly, like a memory leak that never gets patched and never gets discussed. Here is what no Agile certification course ever teaches you. The antidote to this specific trap was written approximately 2,000 years ago. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and died one of the most influential thinkers in Western history, gave his students one foundational rule about speech. He said, "Let silence be your general rule. Say only what is necessary, and say it in a few words." That is not a polite suggestion. That is a systems architecture principle for how a professional should operate under social pressure and surveillance. The Spartans understood this at a civilizational level. They enforced silence on their youth, not as punishment, but as deliberate discipline. The underlying principle was that thoughts gain force and intensity through compression. When you speak less, every word you do release carries significantly more weight. Your silence stops being absence. It becomes presence. It signals that when Avais Aziz speaks in that stand-up, something worth hearing is about to arrive. Zeno of Citium, who founded the Stoic school, offered the same lesson in a more memorable form. He pointed out that we were given 2 ears and only 1 mouth, and suggested that ratio was entirely intentional. In complex technical environments, the person who listens with real precision catches the critical nuances that the monologue performer always misses. The blocker that was actually already solved. The scope change buried inside a throwaway comment. The political landmine disguised as an innocent process question. These signals only reach the person who is genuinely listening. There is a third Stoic concept you need to carry into every stand-up from this point forward. The ancient Greeks called it Hypolepsis, your internal judgment about external events. Stoicism's foundational insight is that your distress is never caused by what happens to you. It is caused by the story your mind writes about what happens to you. Apply this directly to the meeting. When your manager's eyes glaze over during your update, when a stakeholder offers that particular brand of passive-aggressive silence after you speak, your nervous system reads it as a threat. But the Stoic operating system reclassifies it immediately. Their reaction is an external variable. It is weather. You do not modify your internal state or your update because of weather. You report your facts, state your blockers, and stop cleanly. That restraint reads as authority in every room it enters. Epictetus also gave a specific warning about colleagues. Avoid speaking of persons in praise, blame, or comparison. In the corporate stand-up, this rule becomes your diplomatic immunity. The moment you agree when someone says, well, if the back-end team had actually delivered on time, you have stepped into corporate theater. You are now a character in someone else's political narrative. The Stoic exit from that scene is always the same. Return to your facts, your work, your capacity, your delivery. Let others perform, you document. So how do you actually run this protocol in your very next meeting? 3 practices. Implement all 3 immediately. First, the first mover prep. 2 minutes before the stand-up begins, write your update. 3 sentences maximum. What you completed, what you are working on today, and whether you have a blocker. You are not writing it to recite robotically. You are pre-processing it, so you are not improvising under surveillance when 12 faces are watching. Aim to speak second or third. Speaking early anchors your credibility before the meeting builds its own social gravity. Once you have spoken clearly and stopped, you have earned the right to listen for the rest of the meeting without anyone interpreting your silence as disengagement. Second, park the problem. There is a predictable moment in every stand-up when someone surfaces a real technical issue and the meeting tips into a 30-minute debugging session wearing the costume of a sink. You have both the authority and the professional obligation to stop it. Say this. This is clearly important. Can we take it offline immediately after with just the people who need to be in the room? You are not dismissing the problem. You are protecting the team's time and demonstrating that you understand what a stand-up is for. That is what senior engineers do. Third, asynchronous dominance. If verbal performance drains you, and it drains many of the highest performing engineers, shift your visibility strategy to the medium where precision naturally compounds: written communication. A tight ticket update that captures blockers, context, and next steps in 4 clean sentences is worth more than 5 minutes of verbal justification. Written artifacts are searchable. They are quotable. 6 months from now, your manager will reference your documentation in a performance review. No one will remember what you said off the cuff in last January's stand-up. Here is your challenge for the very next stand-up you attend. Prepare 2 minutes before it starts. Deliver your 3 sentences and stop. Do not fill the silence that follows. Refuse to complain about a teammate. Refuse to overpromise to soothe the stakeholder who makes you uncomfortable. And when someone's passive-aggressive body language tries to pull you off center, remember Epictetus. Their reaction is weather. You brought an umbrella. The developers and engineers who build the longest and most sustainable careers are rarely the loudest voices in the daily stand-up. They are the ones whose words carry weight precisely because those words are chosen deliberately. They deliver what they promise because they never promise more than they can actually deliver. Protect your peace. Protect your capacity. Stay silent strategically. If this framework shifted something in how you think about that 15-minute meeting, subscribe to this channel. Every week, we take 2,000-year-old Stoic architecture and map it directly onto the systems and pressures of modern technical work, because the ancients already solved most of what is burning you out. They just did not use Jira. I am Avais Aziz. See you in the next one.